Hello, welcome to our discussion today on practicing self-care during COVID-19. Remember to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can know when we get a new video. And to make the presentation more accessible, you can always click the settings button and turn on closed captioning. Overall, our talk today should take about 15 to 17 minutes of your time. So my name is Alex Avery Hawkins. I use they, them, theirs pronouns, and I am a staff psychologist at the University of Texas at Dallas Student Counseling Center and a proud cat parent. And so the cat that is in the clip right there is Lumi. That is my cat, and I'm very proud of her, so we'll have several pictures of her throughout this presentation. And so to start, wanting to begin with a SelfCare Pop Quiz. So all of these are true/false questions. Then the first one is, self-care is selfish. And so is this statement true or false? False. And hopefully you got this answer correct. Self-care isn't selfish, although this is a commonly misunderstanding that we hear. And so self-care is never selfish, but it might feel that way when you live a frenzied life. And so it's a good quote to kind of summarize our thoughts on that and know that we definitely all need to practice self-care. Next question, I have to earn self-care. We ever heard this? And again, we would like to de-emphasize this point. Everyone, yes, even you, deserves self-care. And similar to how you need to put on an air mask first whenever you're in an airplane and there is some turbulence or a crash and you're needing that oxygen, we really want you to be taking care of yourself first, knowing that this can make you even more helpful to others. Next question. Only the wealthy can practice self-care. True or false? And so oftentimes this is misunderstood in terms of self-care needing to cost a whole lot of money or us spending extravagant amounts of money and kind of explaining that away as self-care. And we want to also practice financial self-care at the same time. Next question, self-care is optional. True or false? Well, you do have the option to take care of yourself, but in my opinion, this should 100% be a priority for all of us. Question number 5, I'm doing self-care wrong. And honestly, if you're surviving a global pandemic right now, you must be doing something right. And so we can only add to that over time. Ooh, a popular one that we hear at UTD especially, self-care in grad school or my major is laughable, right? And I will say this one is pretty realistic, right? And so as a grad student, I oftentimes laughed whenever professors brought up self-care in our lectures. Oftentimes because I felt grad school was so frantic and I really didn't have time to take care of myself in a way that I felt was fully at my capacity, right? And so I know it can be difficult in a hard major or in grad school, or if you just have a few million things on your plate, right? But we would like to lightly nudge people to practice greater ways of self-care in this time. Question number 7, I don't deserve self-care. I am garbage. Okay, wow. I will say that this is relatable. I've felt this way at some point in my life, and I know this is a commonly felt sentiment that I hear from students. And I want to just say that I 100% promise you that you are a worthy person who is likely contributing things to the world. And even if you feel like your contributions right now are minimal, we can always amp those up, right? And so maybe finding that greater worth and meaning in life can be helpful. Another thing to think about is, sometimes we're so hard on ourselves because we've internalized that negative voice of either a past abuser or a bully, or you might feel inadequate because of comparing yourself to others constantly. And so now might be a great time to practice positive self-talk. I like this post in particular because the person is saying, perhaps a new self-care practice could be talking to myself the way that I talk to my dogs, right? So we wouldn't be mean to our animals, hopefully. And so this is something important. In a time when we might feel powerless, it might be helpful to concentrate on what we can control. For me, I like to utilize the Serenity Prayer, which doesn't even have to be religious or spiritual, right? It can just be a good mantra to live by. And it reads, "Grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference." Has anybody heard that out there? Yeah. And so this is a great way to ground yourself and really start to understand what we have control over in our environment, and use this as kind of a mantra. So while we might be away from our normal environments, it can be easy to push our typical self-care routines to the wayside. Although it might not be possible to continue all of your normal self-care regimens to a T at this time while you're at home, following it as much as possible can be very beneficial. So clearly there are going to be several barriers to self-care in this time of physical distancing and quarantining. Though it might be harder, we do know that it's even more important in this current time to take care of yourself. So wanting folks to pause for a moment and think about your normal self-care routine and what that used to look like. Are there things that you used to do that now, due to the circumstances, you aren't able to do? I know for me, I used to attend adult ballet lessons and go out to eat with my friends. And this is not really possible so much now in the current day, given the circumstances. But what we can do is adapt those previous self-care routines to a slightly altered version. So looking at my old self-care practices, you might be puzzled about how to do this. But if we just add in a few tablespoons of creativity, what we can do is maybe alter the in-person studio lessons to home lessons. And so luckily my ballet company sent out links to meet via Zoom. And I will say it's definitely different, but we've had a lot of joy in that process. As far as eating out at restaurants with friends, what we can do instead is to call our friends via Zoom or Skype or FaceTime and maybe order in from a restaurant. Maybe we all can even order in from the same restaurant and have that shared experience. So really just having to be creative in these difficult times. And we do want to normalize the fact that this will likely feel very adapted and less than ideal at times. And it's 100% okay to grieve. I really like this social media post. We're missing so much, right? So you might be missing sports, you might be missing your birthday. I had to celebrate a quarantine birthday here, and it was definitely different, I would say. You might be missing in-person hugs if you're a hugger, right? Spending time with friends, and so many more things, right? And it's okay to grieve all of those things. We're missing so much right now, and we just want to normalize that. And at the same side, I have heard from many folks that they're developing a heightened sense of appreciation for the times when we do get to socialize with others, which might have been taken advantage of in the past.
4 o'clock, wallow in self-pity. 4:30, stare into the abyss. 5 o'clock, solve world hunger. Tell no one. 5:30, jazzercise. 6:30, dinner with me. I can't cancel that again. 7 o'clock, wrestle with my self-loathing. I'm bored.
So I like that clip because we see that even somebody who is as bored as the Grinch was can still really benefit from having some sense of a routine to feel busy and accomplished in the day. And I like this social media post because it really speaks to something that I myself have done, right? So it says, does anyone else write things they already did in their planner just so you can cross it out and feel accomplished, right? And so we might need to do that right now. I would say write down goals for yourself. Each day, it might be good to make your bed, maybe take a shower, put on normal clothes that you feel grounded in, and maybe do your hair in a certain fashion and put on makeup if that is something that you utilize. You need to feel as normal as possible during these hard times. And so we do recommend folks use at least 2 special self-care activities per day. So you might unconsciously already been practicing these things. And we would like to say on top of those things that we're already doing, right, we can add in 2 new things every day. And so for those ideas, I've posted a short list of common activities that one could do, but really this list is endless. Again, just searching out any self-care practices that might fit your fancy. I also want to remind folks that now might be a great time to develop a new skill or activity that you have always wanted to do. And so for me, I always love painting. And so now can be a time where I am painting more frequently and really getting that artistic expression out in my day-to-day life. Also wanting to remind folks that there are different components of self-care, right? And so that can be the emotional self-care practices. We also could have psychological, spiritual, financial, professional, and physical ways of self-care. And so not just going hard in the physical or just going, deep into the emotion self-care, really wanting to have a blend of all of those things. So next we're going to go into the basics, which is what I like to call eating, sleeping, and exercising. And wanting to acknowledge that these 3 areas all are about balance, right? We can always overdo any of these, right? And get to a place where we're not practicing healthy self-care anymore. And so really wanting to normalize that some of these could be at times used to cope or to fill a void for having a difficult time, right? I see a lot of social media posts about this. One of the first ones that I remember seeing is this post. And so saying, I got off the couch today like some sort of Olympian, right? And just wanting to say that, exercise really can be a great way to get your mind off of this very stressful situation. Plus, it's a natural stress reliever. And so we know that many gyms and classes might not be an option at this time, but also wanting to share that there are loads of workout tutorials or yoga classes, again, whatever fits your fancy on YouTube or other streaming services. And also wanting to remind folks that exercise is all about joyful movement, right? We don't want to be exercising in a way that causes physical pain or mental unhappiness. Working out can be whatever you are wanting it to be. So there's no need to dread this or to despise it if you are truly listening to your body and selecting fun and engaging activities. And because you might be spending countless hours sitting by a computer, it can also be good to practice some stretching throughout the day. Please remember, if you are sick, injured, or if it's dangerous outside, please practice sound judgment and take care of yourselves and maybe limit exercise to in-home if it's dangerous outside or the weather's bad. And if you're sick or injured, please consult with your medical provider before starting exercise routines back. Lastly, per the CDC, we also suggest that when you are outside, please remain at least 6 or more feet away from other people. And I know this can be hard, especially if you're living in a pretty crowded community. And so with this, it's maybe looking at times when your community is less busy. For me, I know if I go on a walk early in the morning, I'll have less interactions with others and can distance myself better in those situations. So sleep is definitely something that is essential to maintain in this time, right? And so in order to keep your immune system strong, we do know that for at least most adults, 7 to 9 hours is generally best. We do know that with the switch to online classes and staying at home, students might feel tempted to say, well, I don't really need a consistent schedule. Why not just sleep in, all day and stay up until 4 p.m. or 4 a.m. playing video games, right? However, we really would encourage students to move away from that and figure out a sleeping schedule that works for you. Something that could be consistent maybe also would be important. And so avoiding things like binge sleeping or sleeping whenever you're bored. This way you can feel more proactive throughout the day and establish an internal clock. So where your wake and your sleep hours keep you feeling rested and energized throughout the day. So the next edition of the basics is eat. And so I like to utilize a bunch of funny social media posts on this one. And so this one says, therapist over the phone, how have you been passing the time? Me mixing 4 types of cereal together to create a stronger, more delicious super cereal. I'm learning to cook. And in the next clip, we'll see a cute little dog who's having a snack attack. So remember that we all need variety in our diet and that we should have, for most people, and again, I would ask your healthcare provider or a dietitian. For most people, we need 3 balanced meals per day and in addition, some snacks, right? And so with groceries, we also want to remind folks that getting a range of foods could be helpful rather than just buying everything in sight. And so I know that this crisis has created a lot of anxiety for folks and some rightfully so, right? But with grocery buying, we really only want to buy the things that you're going to eat. If you know that you're never going to eat those canned green beans, right? Put them back on the shelf. You do not need to buy them. However, just wanting to normalize, if you did stress buy some food items that you're not wanting and they're non-perishable, know that I'm sure plenty of centers and crisis support systems, maybe even the comic cupboard, right, could utilize those materials later. And so you can always make some donations after this all has resolved. Next, wanting to bring up the topic of space, right? And so we're done with the basics. And one of the last things we wanted to address with you is that this might be a huge stressor for some folks. If we're living with others and starting to feel pretty claustrophobic or smothered even by family members or roommates, it might be helpful to find a secret hideout if that is possible. Now, again, if you do have that private room that's available, it might be good to establish some me time hours and maybe even share those out with others. Maybe even making these hangers so that you can put that outside of the door and kind of letting people know, like, right now I'd really like to take some time by myself. Establishing those me hours can really help get some privacy and hopefully improve your mood to make family time even more enjoyable. Lastly, we wanted to provide students with updates. And so please know that if you are a new or returning client and are interested in the Counseling Center services, please email counselingcenter@utdallas.edu. Also know that there is still a 24/7 crisis support line that is called UTD Talk. And again, this is a free resource and available to all students throughout all times of the day. Lastly, we wanted to thank you for your time today, and we hope we get to see you soon, and we're going to end on a funny clip. And this is likely going to be my reaction the first time I get to go back on campus and see everyone again. Bye.